Hey guys, so today I wanted to do a quick video on how to plant squash. Just some quick tips how I plant it. Again, this may be very basic for some of you, but some of you might be beginners and this is helpful, so hopefully it's helpful too. A lot of this stuff I just do by second nature. Obviously I've done it so often, so many times now, and it will become second nature for you too. So first tip would be, obviously, if you can't tell, it's in the evening right now for us. I always recommend planting your new starts or your vegetables or any plants you have to plant in the evening. It gives them, you know, the whole nighttime of darkness to kind of settle into their new home. It reduces the amount of stress that they have from transplant. It keeps the soil, moisture longer, and just overall is the best time to plant. So, if possible, choose an evening time to plant it when it's not going to be the full heat of the sun. If you have to plant in the morning, that's like your next best option. Just make sure if you plant in the morning that you give your plants some sort of shade cover for the next couple days. I mean, this is kind of if you do it in the morning or in the evening either, but definitely if you do in the morning, make sure you shade it for at least during that day, because if you plop these things in the ground and then it gets like blazing hot sun, they're gonna be in shock and probably die. So all it takes is like a cardboard box next to it or a bucket or something next to it, or just like draped over it, that will help keep the heat of the sun off, like the hottest part of the sun off your plants. Okay. Step 2 or tip 2 would be to pick a nice fertilizer or a compost. This is just like this Scout Ollie I like is a local-ish company that I like to use if I don't have enough of my own. You go through so much, so making your own compost is obviously the best, but if not, grab a bag of compost, get a scoop full of it, figure out where you want to plant your squashes. We're going to plant squash today. So today I'm going to be planting Dark Star and Emerald Delight zucchini. There are actually a lot of different varieties of zucchini. And of course I have to have them all because I'm obsessed. But anyway, so this is going to be Dark Star. You can tell I start mine in my soil blocks. I know I've mentioned this like 1,000 times, but I really like them especially for squashes because squashes don't love to be transplanted. So when you're putting these things in the ground, whether you buy them from the store, obviously seeds are great too for these kind of plants. Your cucumbers, your zucchini squash, summer squash, spaghetti squash, butternut, like any of those curvica, I don't think I'm saying that right, the squash families. They don't love to be transplanted. They don't love their roots being touched. They're very temperamental. So you could just plant the seeds. They germinate really well and actually don't really have much of an issue planting them from seed. But if you want to get a head start like me, you can do plants or start your own little plants and put them in the ground. So I do soil blocks. When you're transplanting them, whether they be soil blocks or just from like the store, try to avoid obviously manhandling the roots as much as possible. So I just wanted to show you what we got here. What I do is I actually will chop off these first little leaves. Like these are the first leaves that come out from the seed. It's what gives the plant its initial energy. And I can't remember the name of them. The coledron. I know I'm not saying that right. Maybe I am. I don't know. These first set of leaves, you can chop those off. So they always end up looking kind of raggedy, and they're the worst for wear when you go to plant them. So I just chop those off because they're already starting to look a little ragged, and the plant won't really suffer from losing those couple leaves. So I just trim it off. You can see this one here too. They start to yellow, and they're the ones that just die. Normally they'll die off and wither by themselves, but excuse me, I give them a little trim. So also what I do is, like I said, I take a couple scoops of compost, I stick it in the spot that I want to plant. This is kind of where I've decided to plant. You can see I've already have one planted here. And I try not to till the soil as much as possible. I try to leave it as intact as possible because, earthworms are in there and the soil is building its own structure, and all of the weed seeds that were at the surface have germinated and I've already weeded them. So when you turn it, it just kind of starts the whole process all over again. So till as least as possible. That would be a recommendation that I just follow. And pick the spot I want to plant, and then I throw the compost on top, and then I just kind of chop it in. I'm not tilling the whole bed, obviously. I am mixing this up just a bit, but you know, it's kind of a necessary process here. And so I'm just loosening, I don't know, you know, like a 10-inch size circle, just so that when I plant this, it's going to have a nice loose surrounding area. This is my drip irrigation. I'm just kind of tucking away from the side right now. So I just get a little frustration out. Yeah, but for real, gardening is very therapeutic for many reasons. All right, so you can tell this is just beautiful looking dirt. It's all the compost is mixed in now, and I have a nice spot where I can plant my little plant here. So what I'll do is I will just pull a little bit of this dirt off to the side. You don't want to plant it too much deeper than what it's already at. So the soil surface here, like, you know, you can tell there's some little roots here that are starting to grow out, and they will grow a little bit of roots, but I try not to bury it too deep. So I kind of set it in there. I kind of do a dry run, see where I'm at. All right, I can probably go down just a little bit more here. Make sure it's where I want it to be, you know, like, because once you plant it, I highly recommend don't digging it back up, because it kind of goes with what I mentioned first, like, they don't love to be manhandled. All right, it's a little bit low, so that's about where I want it to be. Hopefully you guys can see with that drip irrigation, sorry. So now I've got my hole, I got my spot, I know where I want to plant it. My next tip would be get yourself some of this. I really, really love this stuff. It helps, I think, greatly to reduce transplant shock. It's Biotone Starter Plus, and it has like micro haze and just all of that like supercharged stuff that plants need. I don't know, technical stuff, mumbo jumbo, insert here. But all I do is I just take like a teaspoon of it and I just sprinkle it in. You don't need much. Again, I'll show you guys that right there. And it gives you tips on the back, but anytime I transplant a plant, I stick a little bit of this in the hole. It's habit, it's what I do, and I don't know if you guys can probably see behind me or not, but I have mutant plants, so it's working. I'm sticking with it. All right, so all I do is I stick that in there, and I just use my hands to kind of mix it in a little bit. You don't want a giant clump of it because it could burn the roots. It's organic, obviously, but you don't want too much at once. So I just mix it gently. There you go, it's kind of mixed in. Now, as soon as I put this plant in the hole, where it touches that fertilized soil, it's going to immediately get that boost of nutrients and all of the stuff it needs to kind of give it some energy to get started again. So set that in there, pull the dirt around. Oh, that's a little bit low. Grab my block a little bit more. Okay. Pull the dirt around and pretty firmly tamp around the plant. The reason why you do this is because you don't want any air pockets around the plant. Where all those roots were, if you have an air pocket, it will air prune. That's why I love soil blocks so much, because they naturally air prune themselves and keep themselves kind of contained until they're ready for me to plant. But it will do the same thing in the ground. If there's an air pocket there, your roots are not going to grow. They're going to stop and they're going to wait for soil to touch them. So you want soil contact in all of the roots. You want there to be no air pockets. And obviously you want it to be set in the ground pretty firmly. So not crazy, like don't smash it, but all right, that's my planting. Obviously I'll mark it. Let's take your tag, immediately mark it. Don't walk away and do more, because you will forget, or at least if you're like me, you will. All right, there's my dark starry zucchini. One other thing I do for my squash, zucchini, scallop squash, any of my summer squashes that are typically like your big bushy type of varieties, I use these tomato cages. I don't even like to call them tomato cages because they're pretty much useless for tomatoes. I don't know if you guys can see back here. I'll have to look at the camera and see if that's in frame, or I'll show you after I'm done here. But I use, my tomatoes get to be 7, 8, 10 feet tall. So I use rebar mesh cages for my tomatoes. But these tomato cages are great for bushy things like this. It will keep it contained and straight upward. The big leaves can fit through these big spots. I've experimented with the rebar cages for these squashes, and what I found was that the giant leaves of like the zucchini and the spaghetti squash, all these different squashes, they're just too big. Like the leaves are literally like 12 inches wide, right? So they just get crammed in those little holes. This is perfect because the leaves can easily get out, and they'll just kind of drape over the edges, and as the plant gets bigger, it will almost turn into like a zucchini tree. Do it this way, trust me. And so it'll keep it off the ground, it'll reduce pests, reduce diseases, all that stuff. So while it's tiny and I can still manage the size, I put it around it. But first let me readjust my irrigation, because I don't want to do that after I put my tomato cage in. This has got to go on this side of this plant. Alright, there we go. Set my irrigation back in place. There we go. Take the cage, set it around it as far as I can go. And here, this is kind of like an example already. This is what will happen. You can take the leaves, you can drape them over the edges, and as it grows, obviously it will do that in a bigger scale. But it makes it easy to get in there and grab your squash so they're not as hidden. Zucchini and summer squash are notorious for like hiding until it's like boom, baseball bat size, right? So this is great. I highly recommend using these support systems. It keeps it up, it keeps it kind of contained, and allows you to have more square footage in your garden. So yeah, I think that's all the tips I have. Other than that, make sure you water it well for at least the first few days, week or two even. And all I do is like after you, I guess the very last step would be to water it in really well. Kind of flood it here for a second, let everything settle. I'll do that a couple times so it doesn't wash all the dirt away. But keep it well watered, and like I said, if you have really a hot sun, I live in South Carolina, so our sun is blazing hot during the day. So what I'll do is I'll sometimes even just clothespin like some scrap fabric to the top and over the sides, so that when the sun gets to the highest part of the day, which is the hottest, it's shaded a little bit. It'll be sun in the morning, so it'll get through the sides in the morning, obviously shade during the afternoon, noonish time, and then once the sun starts to set a little bit more, it'll come in through the other side, if that makes sense. I'm trying to think of a piece of burlap that I could probably show you. Hold on a second. This is actually a perfect example. So a little bit longer would be ideal. I'll grab a little bit longer piece, but burlap would even be fine because it just shades it a little bit, blocks a little bit of the sun, diffuses is the word I was looking for. So this is what I'm talking about. The sun comes in, my sun comes in over there and sets behind the camera here. So in the morning, it'll get sun. The hottest part of the day in the heat, it'll get shade, obviously coming from the top. You get the point. Highly recommend that for about a week or so. I mean, a couple days minimum, and that will really help to reduce the shock. Make sure you keep it well watered, like I said, and yeah. One other thing with squashes is they are, at least in our area, pretty well known for squash bugs and everything. Literally everything wants to eat squash where we live. It's very difficult. We have vine borers and squash, so many things want to eat squash. So I will do a little diatomaceous earth around the base of the plant. Sorry, I can't do two things at once, guys. It's settling in here nicely, just dampen it around. And very last step would be to mulch. Grab a couple handfuls of mulch. I use straw, but mulch it really well. That's another really good tip for, I'm gonna steal it from other parts of my garden. Because these carrots I'm letting these carrots go to seed here. So they're gonna have to be neighbors for just a little bit. Mulch around it really well. That will help to reduce the heat of the soil. That will also help to keep the moisture content in the soil and avoid evaporation. Totally forgot what I was saying now. Oh, Diatomaceous Earth. Diatomaceous Earth is great because I need like little crawly things, any little caterpillars that crawl over it. It'll kill them. Just be mindful that it will also also harmful to pollinators. So bees or anything that comes near it might, if they pick it up or get into it, it could harm them. So I will put it underneath the, like I'll pull the mulch back, I'll put it around the base of the plant, and then I will put the mulch back on top of it to cover the diatomaceous earth so that it doesn't affect my pollinators. Obviously I have 5 hives from where I can even see right now, so I want to be pretty mindful of the pollinators, and so should you, because we need them. They are in danger and we need to do every bit we can to help them. So that's my soapbox moment. Hopefully this was helpful to you. One squash can give your family multiple meals, so give it a try. The same thing applies for cucumbers. I do the exact same thing for cucumbers. Obviously with cucumbers it needs a trellis so it will vine more, but this can also be pretty helpful for the vining cucumbers as well. If you get a smaller, bushier variety, you know, some of them now are like 2 to 4-ish feet. That's probably almost about what you would need for a cucumber trellis. So yeah, obviously don't stick it in as far, jam the whole thing in there, but all right, well that's that. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it, and let me know if you have any questions in the comments. Make sure you follow all of our Ms.Beehaven farm social media stuff. I'm always posting, you know, just all of these different things I do around the farm, including stuff like this. I don't always stop and make videos about it like this in depth. Often I will just throw a live video up on my Facebook page or on my Instagram, and that's usually more like what I have time for. Sorry, I wish I could do more videos like this, but follow those to stay in the loop, and thanks for watching.